Welcome back to Andersen. We're in the kitchen again today, and today we're going to make coconut macaroons. Not macarons, that's a different cookie. Coconut macaroons. These are balls of fluffy coconut goodiness. And my brother loves them, and it's his birthday tomorrow, so these are for him. Hey Eric, he watches absolutely every video I post. So, happy birthday, Eric. You're probably getting these before the video releases, so you'll already know that I made you cookies. Anyway, what we got to do is get a mixing bowl, which for some reason I completely forgot. Here it is. There's my mixing bowl. So you're going to need to use an electric mixer to start. And you're going to put in your whisk attachment. Drop that down. And the only ingredient you want in there at first is 2 egg whites. Okay, pop 2 egg whites in there. And now we're going to whir them up until they're foamy. So you don't need peaks or anything like that. Just some foam. That'll take a couple minutes. Okay, so those are lightly foamy. You don't want more than that. So to that, we are going to add what is basically a dash of salt. Very little salt. You don't need much salt in this recipe. And about 1/4 of a teaspoon or less. So I'm doing about 1/8 of a teaspoon, but you can go up to 1/4 of almond extract. Very little almond extract, or they will be overwhelmingly almond. So just give that a quick mix on a slow cycle. So now I'm going to run the mixer on, I have 4 speeds. I'm going to run it on speed 2. And I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of flour. I want that flour to dissolve in those egg whites. So 2 tablespoons of flour. When that flour is mostly dissolved in the egg whites, we're going to do the same thing with 1/3 of a cup of sugar. 1/3 of a cup of sugar, we're going to gently shake that in as the mixer is running. Okay, it should look really runny, okay? It should be very runny. You have very little flour in there, and that's the point. So we're gonna just take this out of there. Get rid of that beater. And we don't need the actual mixer anymore, so we're just going to get rid of the mixer. So now what we're going to do is we're going to use our rubber spatula to just make sure that the flour and the sugar are incorporated, because you'll probably end up with a couple of clumps. And you want to make sure that you get those clumps off the bottom of the bowl, or off the sides of the bowl, or off wherever they ended up. You want those dissolved in the sugar. So when you have a little lump at the bottom, you want to just get that dissolved into your very slimy mixture. That's normal. It's supposed to be slimy. Okay, the primary ingredient in this is coconut, and we haven't added it yet, so of course it's slimy. So once it's all dissolved, you want to take 2 cups of flaked or shredded coconut. I am using actually a mixture of both, but either will work. And mix that in. Okay, you want that all wet. The coconut needs to get wet. And it's going to be very sticky. This is a sticky one. Okay, you want to really mix that up. You need all of the coconut gooey. And it should look, oddly enough, fairly dry, because all you're doing is mixing coconut in, but there's a lot of coconut. So you're kind of wanting to mix that until it's really, really dry. It'll look dry, but it won't feel dry. Like if I touch it, it's all sticky and gross. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to do about a tablespoon of water. We're going to do just a tablespoon of fairly cold water. Okay, you don't need much water. You don't want much water or it'll turn gluey. What you want is just enough water to kind of help moisten that coconut. And so it'll kind of look almost like Rice Krispie treats, honestly, is what it ends up looking like. So, scrape off our paddle. There we go. And now we need our cookie sheet. So, I'm using a liner on my cookie sheet. I'm using a silicone liner because they're non-stick. This is a very sticky dough. So, if you are using this dough and you need a liner, you either want something totally non-stick or you want to spray your cookie sheet with a really good cooking spray because this stuff sticks and sometimes it's hard to get off. So, just make sure your mixture is fairly uniform. Okay, so if you do this in your hands, you'll see you can do it in your hands, but look at how sticky that is. So we're not going to do it in our hands because it's really, really sticky and gross. Just getting the coconut off my hand now. So you don't want to form these with your hands. What you want to do is form them with the spoons. Okay, you definitely want to use spoons. Even though I'm a big proponent of using hands, not in this particular instance. So what you want to do is use your spoons, and it's going to be all gross and sticky and not a lot of fun. So get your lumps of coconut. You can make them as big as you want. Like I can make them bigger than that. And you kind of want to try to keep them a little bit uniform, even though it's really hard because it's coconut and it's sticking out everywhere. But just try. And you can make them bigger, like I am going to make them bigger. But just try to get them to stick together and not fall everywhere. They actually are easy to form once you get the hang of it. Okay, so they're not difficult once you're used to it. Once you're used to kind of the way the batter moves, because it's an odd type of batter, but it should have kind of an odd shape. But you want to try to keep those bits of coconut from sticking out too much because they might burn. So try to keep your coconut a little bit under control. Even though that's pretty difficult to do sometimes, but it doesn't hurt to try. So once you have your spoons, you just use your spoons. Don't use your fingers. Like I showed you before, this stuff sticks like crazy to your fingers. So you want to use your metal spoons because that helps you not end up with a bunch of coconut all over your hands instead of on the pan. So don't use your fingers. Okay, you definitely do not want to use your fingers. So just kind of press everything together. Okay, and while you're doing this, you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. I know that sounds low. Usually we are doing cookies at 350, 375. Some cookies we're even cooking at 400. These cookies, they need to be at 325 or they'll burn. And we are going to be cooking them for 15 minutes, which again sounds long because a lot of times we're cooking cookies for under 10 minutes. But it's just the way this dough needs to cook. You do need to give it that full 15 minutes. So that's another reason for that lower temperature. So just try to keep your coconut under control. Okay, and yes, you can add more to one that's too small, and it's not difficult at all. It's just annoying at the beginning. And then once you learn, first, don't touch it with your fingers because that doesn't help you. And two, if you learn how it is that you can press them together a little easier, then it just becomes a little bit easier for you to form them. So practice makes perfect. Okay, don't expect your first couple batches to look great because it does take a little bit of practice to put them together. And I know they look crumbly. I promise they turn out. I promise they'll turn out. Okay. So I'm just topping a couple of the smaller ones with a little bit more. Okay. And I think we have just a tiny bit more in here. So just go back, give everyone a press if they need it. And then we're going to stick these in the oven, and we're going to bake them for 15 minutes at 325 degrees Fahrenheit. We'll come back when they've been sufficiently cooled. And there you have it. Coconut macaroons. Excellent, delicious, fun to make, easy to eat. You can also, if you want to jazz them up a little bit, take a pool of melted chocolate, dip them in the chocolate, let them dry, and then you'll have chocolate coconut macaroons. So, they're fun, easy, and I really do recommend that you make them if you like coconut. My brother happens to love coconut, so these are for him. That's about it for us here today at Andersen Acres. We'll see you tomorrow.